When your band's as big and loud as Slipknot, it's easy to get caught up in the moment. If you consider walking off a broken neck or eating a rotting bird carcass run-of-the-mill, have we got the act for you. It turns out the stage isn't the only place Slipknot likes to play with fire. In August 2024, DJ Sid Wilson was hospitalized after a terrifying explosion. As he reported on Instagram, he had attempted to stoke a bonfire at home and it went horribly wrong.
I'm okay. I'm gonna be okay. But I did have some serious burns to my face and my arms.
He was quickly taken to the hospital where they treated him for those burns before moving to another facility for further care. And while the wounds looked serious, Wilson seemed to be in good spirits and assured his many fans he'd be alright and back playing live soon.
Oh, I'll be in LA. This ain't gonna stop me.
True to his word, the injuries barely kept him off the road. The same day Sid posted his first update, Slipknot announced on their Instagram that he was recovering and would join them for a festival performance the following weekend. With all those heavy masks, we wouldn't be surprised if Slipknot sees mostly blackness on stage. But thanks to their energetic performances and all the body heat in a crowded music venue, singer Corey Taylor's vision actually went black during one particularly hot set in Texas. Speaking with Fuse TV, Taylor explained that he collapsed from heat exhaustion while performing in Dallas in 2012. He recalled, "I basically blacked out for the last two songs, but I finished the show. I have no memory of the last two songs. I woke up backstage with an oxygen mask on and Chris Fain taking my shoes off, which is very weird, and my wife making sure I was okay."
I immediately just started freaking out. I was like, oh my God, we had to cut the show short. And she was like, nope, you finished it. I'm like, excuse me?
Taylor recalled that the venue felt particularly hot that night. He theorized that the temperature plus the oxygen-sucking propane the band uses for their live shows is what did him in. It turns out those burns weren't the first serious injuries Sid Wilson's retained in his day. When you go to a Slipknot show, you'll need to watch your head about as much as you watch the band. This is partially due to how rowdy crowds get during Slipknot performances, but it's also because the band themselves are known to jump into the crowd. Wilson in particular stage dives pretty frequently, and it hasn't always gone as planned. In 2008, he climbed up onto a platform and jumped into the crowd a few songs into the set. He didn't quite stick the landing and broke both of his heels on impact. To his credit, he did get back up on stage and finish the set. And hey, at least he remembers it. While telling Roadrunner Records about the accident, Wilson blamed himself for not wearing braces or athletic wraps during the shows.
I had my weight behind me, not on my toes, landed on my heels, and broke both of them at the same time.
The stage crew slid a chair behind his riser for the rest of the set so he could sit down in between songs, but for the rest of the tour he had to perform in a wheelchair. From their early tours, Slipknot always knew how to party. And speaking with The Guardian, Taylor recalled one particularly rowdy European tour they went on in 2001. He explained that Slipknot was on tour with Midwestern rockers American Head Charge at the time. While the bands were on a ferry from Sweden to Finland, American Head Charge's guitarist decided to peel off all his clothes, head to the top of the ferry, and wave at other passing boats. Unsurprisingly, the crew didn't love this idea and tried to get him dressed and back down on the deck. Not about to be outdone by their peers, Slipknot also turned up the antics a notch. Taylor recalled, "There was also the ferry ride where we set our stage manager on fire in the bar. He passed out, so we just set his legs on fire. He wouldn't wake up, so we put him out, but the damage was done." Whenever they play live, Slipknot has a way of finding the line between wild and dangerous. And even as they cycle through lineup changes, we doubt they let a new member in unless they're confident they'll add to the chaos. Commonly known as Tortilla Man to fans, percussionist Michael Pfaff joined the band in 2019 and quickly started proving he could handle the onstage shenanigans. In an interview with German publication Rock Antenna, Taylor praised the energy and intensity his new bandmate brought to the tour supporting their 2019 album We Are Not Your Kind. Taylor recounted how Pfaff almost broke drummer Jay Weinberg's drum kit by doing one of the most Slipknot things ever.
He's got a giant scar right in the middle of his forehead now because he smashed his head into the drums and cut it open.
Taylor added that Pfaff's head bled so much that he had to take his mask off mid-show to let the medical team put a bandage on it.
It looks like a coin slot for a... It does. Yes. It's like, somebody put a quarter in the new guy. We gotta start the show.
In 2016, Taylor underwent emergency spinal surgery. Often when someone needs a procedure like that, it's because they just had a serious accident. But in Taylor's case, he'd apparently been walking around with a broken neck. Yes, you heard that right, for years. Speaking to BBC Radio 6 Music, Taylor explained how he believes he got the injury while Slipknot was performing at Ozfest. He reflected, "I fell off stage in '99 and landed on my head, fell 5 feet and landed on top of my head. and they think what happened is it compacted my C5 and C6. As soon as the then 25-year-old Taylor realized he could still sing and move normally, he didn't think twice about getting right back to the grind. Unfortunately, the injury only worsened over decades of crazy Slipknot shows. He reflected, "It just kind of exacerbated the injury to the point where the bone was growing into my spine. When he started to feel the right side of his body get weaker, he realized he was in trouble. Luckily, the surgery went well and he got back to touring before long."
I had the strength of an 80-year-old, basically. Wow. In fact, I probably would have lost a fight to an actual 80-year-old.
Slipknot's 1999 self-titled album burned up the charts and nearly burned down a studio in the process. They recorded the album at the Indigo Ranch in Malibu, California, with renowned heavy metal producer Ross Robinson. Late drummer Joey Jordison told Revolver he and Robinson mixed the album together, but disaster struck while he was sleeping over at the studio one evening. Jordison recalled, "I knocked one of the pillows off that I was sleeping on and it fell onto the space heater. Next thing I know, I'm smelling something and I jumped up. I almost burned Indigo Ranch completely down. The whole thing was filled with smoke and flames. Luckily, they extinguished the fire before it got out of control. But even with all the windows open, it took days to get the burning stench out of the building." Slipknot isn't the only masked metal band from the Midwest to hit it big. Cleveland, Ohio's Mushroomhead also dons terrifying masks, and they're not the biggest Slipknot fans. In fact, ex-singer Jeffrey Nothing even alluded that Slipknot stole the masked gimmick from Mushroomhead on the ADHD podcast. And while talking trash to the media is nothing new in the music industry, the band's rivalry turned physical at one point. When Slipknot traveled to Cleveland to play a show, they were fully aware that there could be trouble waiting there. As Slipknot's late bassist Paul Gray told Revolver, "There were about 20 kids in the crowd that were Mushroomhead fans that were whipping batteries at us. Me and Jim Root jumped off stage and took our masks off and started swinging at people at the end of one song. After the fight, Slipknot got back on stage and finished their set, but as soon as they were done playing, they went back out into the crowd and started fighting their attackers again. The police even maced and arrested a member of Slipknot's crew in the mayhem." Even if Slipknot's masks got them in trouble with Mushroomhead supporters, there's no denying that they make the band instantly recognizable. Unfortunately, wearing those things isn't always a walk in the park for the musicians behind them. They're heavy, hot, and restrict oxygen flow. And while the band has since started wearing masks that are easier to take on and off, the ones from their early days caused their fair share of disgusting problems. As Taylor recalled to Revolver, "There were a lot of times when it was so hot and I'd been raging so hard that I'd throw up in my mask and have to eat the puke because there was nowhere to spit it." And on top of that, Taylor regularly hurt himself by choking up on the microphone too much. He recalled, "I broke my mouth so many times coming up too hard on the mic. I went from having to swallow blood to puking and having to swallow that. Spit it out is right." Sibling rivalries often result in minor squabbles, but Slipknot guitarist Mick Thompson's reached a whole new level. According to a police report shared with the Des Moines Register, he and his younger brother Andrew got into it in March 2015. In the early hours of the morning, Mick and Andrew were intoxicated and started arguing. Things took a violent turn and they both grabbed knives and started fighting outside their house. Concerned neighbors called the cops and both Mick and Andrew were arrested. Each had sustained minor injuries and Mick had reportedly been stabbed in the back of the head. While both brothers faced disorderly conduct by fighting charges, neither one decided to press charges against the other. If you think this sounds like an urban legend, we don't blame you, but Sid Wilson told Spin that this is 100% true. In their early days, Slipknot brought a dead bird in a jar to their shows. Reportedly, this tradition, for lack of a better word, was started by Sean Clown Cran. The reasoning behind it was that the group would open the jar and smell the decaying bird to get a whiff of death in their systems before they played. And while this was meant to get them in the right headspace to perform, it just as often made them puke. And if that isn't bad enough, their early fans were totally into it. Wilson explained how they once asked the band to put the jar down on the stage so that they too could smell it. When Slipknot did so, the fans started to eat the bird's carcass and the gross liquid that had formed around it. And here we thought Taylor Swift's fans were dedicated. If the whole eating a dead bird thing didn't clue you in, Slipknot's fan base is hardcore. To embrace a nickname like the Maggots, you need to really love the music and the people making it. Even so, the band is still occasionally surprised by the lengths fans will go to show their support. As Cran told Spin, one fan even gave him a human bone as a tribute. He recalled, "She gave me a human femur bone that she had written 'people equal shit' on it. It wasn't a normal clean bleached bone. It was brown and dirty and she had clearly gotten it from a grave." Cran stayed vague about where this was to help protect the fans' privacy, but he did sit down and talk with her for a while. He reflected, "She was very deep into our thought processes and really in love with our idea, so in love that she went to these realms." Well, we can't say we condone grave robbery, but that's definitely one way to show your appreciation.